Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we're going to talk about differences in trainers. I've had some questions about why I train so much differently and why I recommend so many different things than other types of trainers do. In college, I studied biochemical engineering instead of sports science. Biochemical engineering is one of the hardest majors in the world, and the first thing that you learn is that you know nothing. And that if you don't know the answer to a question, that you need to figure out how to answer that question. So you go away and you look for the information, and then you determine, based on the information and the time you have, what is the most economical way to accomplish the task in the best way possible for the resources you have. And that is very different than somebody who studied just training in college. People who go through the pipeline of studying just training study a very specific type of training, and so they tend to write programs in very specific ways because that's the way that they were taught. There is nothing wrong with that. That is absolutely great. There are many, many fantastic trainers like that. I know a couple of the people who have master's degrees in that, and we always sit down and we talk about why they do things and why I do things. There's just differences in perspective. My job, working in movies, tends to change the way that I think about training because I am training for a very specific task that is not any of the things that people who go through sports science are training for. Most people who go through sports science aren't breaking down fight scenes in movies and figuring out how to replicate those movements. And if they did, they would come up with a very specific series of answers based on the tools that they are trained to use. When I started becoming a trainer, looked for something that was the most economical, required the least amount of space, and the least specialized environment to be utilized. Kettlebells meet that goal very quickly. Instead of needing a barbell, which could be $400 if you want an Ohio bar from Rogue, plus a bunch of bumper plates, plus a squat rack, plus a cable machine, plus all these other things, could we accomplish a very similar thing with one 100-pound piece of steel or three 100-pound pieces of steel? And the answer is yes, but because the engineering degree is just about solving problems and doing it in an economic way, I will solve problems in a very different way than other trainers will, and that is totally fine. So the perspective that you're getting here will not line up with a lot of the other perspectives of other types of trainers. Totally fine. Because they're different does not mean that one is better than the other. They are different. They are different solutions to the same problem set, and based on the knowledge that we have along the way. I tend to train very differently because the education at the base is different. I tend to be really nerdy and do a lot of nerd math and load balancing because that's something that you would do in an engineering mindset. Instead of just doing 6 to 8 for this type of thing, 12 to 15 for this type of thing, the answer changes drastically based on the inputs, because the inputs are always different for my equations. Whether you have different age brackets, different injury types, I will come up with different answers based on that information that's going into the starting equation. Time, energy, output, all of those things have to be considered, because we're not training professional sports teams where they have lots of time and lots of equipment. We tend to train everywhere from your common man to movie stars. And each one of those things has a different series of equations, so the answers always come out differently.